I want to talk to you and have kind of like a story time about my mom. So, my mom has been fairly healthy most of her life. I wish I knew the dates or stuff like that, but I don't really, and I tend to forget stuff very easily. But I'm going to kind of give you guys a rundown. My mom is my best friend. We are very close. Each one of her kids are very close with their mother, but not with one another, which is a whole different story. And my mom gets something from each one of her children, whether one would be more like financial support, and one is more laughs, one is more medical support, whatever it is. And I'm the child who gives her warmth and comfort and laughs. She is never able to be sad around me, and I like that. I am her youngest child, and I almost lost my mother. So February or March, I think it's not been a year, so it's either been 2 years or 3 years ago. February or March, I believe, or sorry, April or March, I think it was actually April. So April or March of 2 or 3 years ago, I know that I was living here in the state, and I had just moved here, so I feel like it was 3 years ago. My mom almost lost her life. Now reversing, my mom years ago became sick, and she was getting sick very fast. I was living in Florida, and at first I thought a lot of my symptoms that I was getting was because of what I had been hearing about what's happening with my mom. And we found out way years ago, when she was still healthy, that she had hepatitis C, which she knew before I knew she had hepatitis C. My dad knew he had hepatitis C before I knew, and I found out that they had hepatitis C when I tried to donate my blood back in high school sometime around 2002, 2003, and it was denied because I have hepatitis, and to find out they did, so the chances are a little bit higher that I received it from them in no other way. So fast forward, my mom gets sick, and I don't really know the details or remember them much. If I really think about it, I probably could figure them out, but she was in and out of the hospital a lot, and there was nothing I can do. I had, you know, I was living in Florida and she was living in New York, and she had liver damage. So in the end, she ended up moving to, I think this might be completely wrong, so you'll get the drift of what I'm saying, whether I'm saying it correctly, but she ended up moving with my brother to California, and he was her financial support, her support completely in every way. He took care of her, he'd help change her, bathe her, anything that she needed. And she was at one of the like most prestigious hospitals in California. And she was transferred to the prestigious hospital, the hospital where all the famous people go to, and if they die there. Sinai, something like that. So those who live in California, that's where Mom ended up being after she was transferred, because the doctor kept messing up her charts. And my brother was like, "You're a doctor, how do you keep switching her chart with somebody else's?" And he goes, I'm switching her. And I think she was airlifted, but that could be wrong, but she was transferred from one location to another. And in the end, she needed a transplant. She needed a liver transplant because she had severe liver disease. She was not a drinker. All my family members are all social drinkers, less than social drinkers. They all smoke, every one of them. I am the drinker, and I don't smoke. And so I'm now living in Minnesota because I was getting sick. And at first I thought I was getting sick because my mom was getting sick, and I was panicking. So now I'm living in Minnesota, and my mom is staying with my brother in California. And when they all are thinking everything is fine, she ends up going to my brother's home to stay with him again from the hospital, and she gets sick again and goes back, and she's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they're like, your mother has 1% chance of living through the week. I'm now drinking a lot. Drinking is something I tend to fall to when it comes to having hard times. It's just what I do. Some people go to certain things, and I'd rather go to that to cutting because I have a history of that, or going to depression or stuff like that where I could really harm myself more than, I guess, drinking. I wasn't drinking or driving, but I was drinking. So we all had to go say our goodbyes. My brother was I just had the name and I forgot where he makes the decisions. He had to sign for it because she wasn't fully there. She forgot names, the birthdays, memories, who she was, who I was. So my dad flew me out to say my goodbyes to my mom. My sister flew out, and my 2 brothers lived there, and one was taking care of her. I put lotion on her hands and watched her forget who I was. She remembered everyone else but me, and then she remembered after some time. Her hair was completely gray from roots to ends. She used to dye it, and she just looked so old. Her skin was so frail. And essentially we were all saying goodbyes, taking family photos, stuff like that. She told us that where she wanted her ashes to be thrown. She signed her will, the whole thing. She did a DNR. So I come back home and things get worse. And now she has kidney failure and needs a kidney transplant. And that 1% is pretty much thrown into the trash that she's going to make it through the week. They said even if she gets a transplant, she has a 1% chance of living through the transplant surgery. And if she makes it through the surgery, she's got a 1% chance of even living with these organs because her body is just kind of falling apart. Rewinding, I just wanted to let you know that she was at Mayo Clinic here in Minnesota, and I forgot to mention that. As I said, I'll remember things here and there. My mom did move here after California, or after she lived in New York and she started getting sick. She actually moved in with me. I just got that too. She moved in with me for about a month or so in Florida, but I was too sick and I didn't know how to take care of her. I'm not a person to take care of somebody else. That's not who I am. So she ended up moving in with my dad here in this house. And he took care of her for about a year. And she was going to the Mayo Clinic a lot. And he was her caretaker, taking care of her. And she was able to still clean herself and bathe herself and feed herself, the whole thing. And they are the ones that said you have to have a range of numbers to be on a transplant list. And she was like one number below. So basically, and they were saying that, but by the time she gets to the point where she needs a transplant, or she's able to get the transplant legally, or by the books, she'd be too far along or something. And then by that time, she ended up moving in with my brother, and then she got really sick. I think she moved in with my brother, and it was under a week, maybe a few days, that she ended up in the hospital. And it was like that. So fast forward back to where I was at, and I was at a bar with a friend, and I was just heartbroken, and I get a text, I believe, or a phone call. I believe it was a text saying, Mom is getting her transplant done tonight. And I go, what do you mean transplant? And I guess someone lost their life to save my mother's life. And she got a kidney and liver transplant, a double transplant. And she made it through, and I wanted to come. I figured out so many ways to get there, whether my dad was going to pay for a ticket, and my sister said, Sarah, there is no way that you can come with the way your health is. You can't be around stress. You can't be around someone you love so much. You'll be in the hospital with her, and we can't take care of both of you guys. We will keep you in sync with everything that is happening with Mom. But you cannot come here. You have to stay home where you belong. I knew she was right, but I didn't want that moment where I didn't get to say my goodbyes to my mom. And yes, I did say my goodbyes about a week or so ahead of time, but it wasn't the same. All the kids were there by her bedside and I wasn't, and it wasn't fair. But if I was there, I wouldn't be able to be there with her if I was sick myself. So my mom has her transplant and I'm sitting at the bar waiting, and it was successful and everything went great. And I saw the photos my brother took, he's a photographer, of her stomach and all the stitches and all the bruising up her neck. It was very, very intense, and she made it through. And now it's 2 or 3 years later, and her transplants, her organs, new organs, have been taken in her body, and there hasn't been any issues. There was a few scares that I believe it was when she got home after her transplant, she ended up back in the hospital because her numbers were off the charts or something like that, and they were all scared that her organs were rejecting her body. But something else happened, and I don't remember what it was, but she made it through. She is now a diabetic. I am not exactly sure how that happened, but she wasn't before. And my mother's still here, and she is now living in, where is she living? She's living in Georgia with my sister right now, and she's doing very well. She's on, I forgot what the name of the medication is, but a medication after transplants that you have to be on for the rest of your life. And she's a diabetic now, and a few things that definitely have changed. And I believe that it's 5 years. You have to make sure things are well before you're like out of the woods when it comes to an organ or organs, you know, going against your body. But my mom's doing well, and I just wanted to say that I love my mother, and she doesn't probably hear it often from me, but she hears it most from me, as I'm not very, I'm not a person who does a lot of love yous and hugs and touches, but she knows I do. And I'm so happy that she is here with us today. It was a very rough moment in time at in that situation, and she's very healthy, and well, I'm still sick, so I think that things made it worse at the time when I first got diagnosed with things, and I didn't even have a real diagnosis at the time. But being that I would know that my mom was sick, that was only making me even more sick. Yeah, anyway, I'm not gonna make this about me. I love you, Mom, and I'm so happy that you are still here with us.